No, I'm in a minority ball camp here when I say that I don't think President Trump will be that bad of a president. Honestly, I don't. A lot of his policies are just common sense things and a lot of his policies aren't actually that different from Hillary's. A lot. The ones they differ drastically on. But a lot of his policies I agree with. But the one thing I think that's the most dangerous thing that ever came out of Trump's mouth, it's not build a wall, it's not the make a database of Muslims. It's none of that stuff. The one that I think is the most disturbing thing he's ever said is that he wants to take away birthright citizenship. He wants to take away the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was one of the best amendments we ever made because it clarified who's a citizen. It's one of the best tests. It's one of the best amendments we have because it's never been chipped away at. It's never been. The Bill of Rights have been chipped away to death. Matter of fact, if you ever have to argue on a constitutional issue, just going to throw this out here. Use the 10th Amendment. Don't use any of the first 9. Use that 10th one because most likely you will win if you use the 10th Amendment because the 10th Amendment is so freaking vague that if you get the right lawyer, he could make that be whatever the hell he needs it to be for the moment. Just pointing that out. But the 14th Amendment has never been chipped away at, and it needs to stay that way. It is essentially the only amendment that protects Americans. It prevents the government from doing litmus tests to figure out who's a citizen and who's not, and those are dangerous because they could do things like your third great grandfather test, where it says that if any of the 8 great grandfathers, your third great grandfather, if any of those 8 or 16, depending on how it's worded, are not citizens in the United States, you won't be a citizen. That's something bullshit that we used to do before the 1860s. It's another one we used to do too, is that the government can randomly just take away citizenship from groups of people. And what they would say is that if your parents were immigrants from insert country here, then you're not a citizen, even if you were born here. That is bullshit. When the government has the power to do that, the government has way too much power. When you allow the government to dictate who is and who isn't a citizen by just willy-nilly rules, now I'm all for controlling illegal immigration. I'm all for taking people that had no business being here. I'm all for deporting them back. I'm all for if both your parents were illegals and they had no intention of staying in the United States and they're just going to take you over abroad anyways. I'm all for them not having citizenship. That's not an issue for me. Honestly, I'm in the ball camp of if you were born here and your parents are immigrants, legal immigrants, not illegal, then you're a citizen of the United States. Call me weird, but if your parents came here illegally, I don't care how old you are, how long you lived here, and shit like that, you should not be here because your parents shouldn't be here. And by most state laws, your parents essentially own you, and it would be kind of weird to deport your parents without deporting you. You know what I'm saying? In those cases, yes, I support that. But if you're here legally, and your parents were here legally, then you are a citizen of the United States. If your parents were citizens, I don't care where you're born at, you're a citizen of the United States. That's the law. That's how it should be. Birthright citizenship is the best thing that's ever happened. And yes, at first he's only talking about taking birthright citizenship away from illegal immigrants' children. I kind of support that. I can see that. But it's still not something that I can get behind or that needs to be as drastic as repealing the 14th Amendment. We don't need to do that to take away anchor babies. We don't. And even then, honestly, if you really want to curb illegal immigration down, have it where if you have an anchor baby, They're a citizen. You get deported, your kid gets thrown into foster care. You will never see your kid again. That alone will curb illegal immigration, because when they know that their kids won't be deported back with them, and they're going to be deported to their country, and their kid's going to stay the right to fuck here and be put in foster care, is going to be raised here, and they will never see their kid again. I guarantee when they go back to whatever podunk fucking third world country they go to, and they tell their story, that nobody from that country will want to freaking immigrate here illegally again. Problem solved. Sorry about my little rant, but I gave you 2 ways to solve it, and honestly, I favor my second way the best, because it's the one way that would stop illegal immigration of people that wants to have kids here. If you're going to have your kid here, fine, but we're going to deport you and keep your kid. So what I'm getting at is that when the government can decide, ultimately, in summary, when the government can decide that who's a citizen and who isn't, just based on whatever direction the wind's going with the population, and the majority gets to decide that who's a citizen and who isn't, that's the day where we have no rights anymore.